It's usually pretty easy to stay up to date with what the Lakers have going on season to season, in the offseason, no matter what. Just the amount of fans, ESPN's never going to let you forget about it. It's just the way things are. Everybody cares about the Lakers, more so this year than arguably ever. Not ever, but like in recent history, because the amount of storylines they have. Of course, LeBron James is there, so there's extra attention. It's an LA team, extra attention. First year head coach JJ Redick, extra attention from the fact that he's coming from ESPN and having a podcast with LeBron James. All those things bring extra attention. And then, of course, they make the most surprising trade in NBA history by getting Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first. They also got Maxi Kleber, star of the trade. So yeah, all eyes were on the Lakers all season long. Ended with a first round exit to Minnesota in 5 games despite having home court. And of course, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing from outside narratives or from outsiders trying to spin their own narratives. And it's a lot of, well, JJ Redick isn't cut out to be the head coach. It's, of course, Nico Harrison had his spins on Luka's conditioning. Subtle sources, not necessarily directly saying those types of things about Luka, although defense wins championships was kind of the only thing he would say forever. A lot to unpack to see why that isn't necessarily the case. I'm not too concerned about this Lakers team heading into next season. I do think they have some moves to make, which we will get into. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind you guys that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. We've got baseball season in full swing. We've got the NHL playoffs and, of course, the NBA playoffs. We are into the conference finals. OKC just went up 2-0 on Minnesota last night. Hopefully Minnesota can figure things out at home to make this a more competitive series. As of right now, the Thunder are favored by 2.5 for that game 3, which will be played tomorrow. And then after Indiana miraculously took game 1, the Knicks are favored in game 2 by 6 points. And if you're looking at the series prices, the Pacers are slightly favored in the series, and then it's pretty much a runaway to say the Thunder are favored pretty heavily in that series to go to the NBA Finals. They're 2 wins away. So if you want to get in on the action, BetOnline's a great place to do that. It's a very convenient place to do that. And they have the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB to the NHL to UFC. And they remain the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. BetOnline, the game starts here. Okay, the Los Angeles Lakers, just a quick rundown. They have the 55th pick in the draft this year. Not going to maybe be able to add somebody, but not going to be able to necessarily add a guaranteed day one difference maker to add depth to this team. Potentially, but not a guarantee. As far as their future picks, they don't have any second round picks coming up. They have their own first round pick in 26, 28, 30, and 31. That 31, they'll be able to trade unprotected. The 26, 28, and 30 would have to be some sort of swap, just because you can't trade your first round pick in consecutive years. So that's a good bit of ammo to trade if they're willing to. The difference with what they were willing to do before trading for Luka and after, I think, is going to be kind of key here, because your team is built around LeBron James, who just turned 40, and Anthony Davis, who is on the wrong side of 30, has a long, lengthy injury history even since he got to the Lakers. You're probably less willing to trade your 2031 first-round pick away. But now you have Luka Doncic, who in 2031 will still be playing high-level basketball. I want to say he'll be 32 or 33. Let me verify this right now. He's 26 right now. So, yeah, 2031. By the time that draft comes around, he'll be 32 or 33, which means probably still playing high-level basketball. And they're probably planning to have Luka Doncic as the face of their franchise for the next half decade at least. So you're more willing to part with that pick. You're more willing to trade these other first-round picks away as swaps in order to try and win a championship with while LeBron's still here, still playing before he retires, but also with the understanding that if you're keeping Luka around, you're probably going to be playing competitive basketball in 2031, and you're probably going to be able to acquire other players via free agency or whatever else that want to play with Luka. So you're more willing to trade away those picks. I'm expecting to see the Lakers be a little bit more aggressive this summer because the glaring weakness that was so freaking obvious as soon as they traded for Luka by getting rid of Anthony Davis is, oh, they're going to go into the playoffs with Jackson Hayes as their starting center. And with all respect to Jackson Hayes, like the other centers that you go against in the West, I mean, really in both conferences, but the starting centers in the playoffs that you're going against, they're difficult matchups. I mean, they played the Nuggets previously in the playoffs, and if they had to go against Jokic with Jackson Hayes as their starting center and Alex Len backing him up, like it's not a healthy strategy there. Going up against Minnesota, Rudy Gobert is in the offensive, like or dominant offensive player that like at center, but he makes a difference. And if he's not having to be quite as concerned about a dominant big, he's able to help more in the paint, clogs driving lanes. Then you also have the game 5 when JJ Redick opted just to not use Jackson Hayes at all, and Rudy Gobert dominated because they didn't really have another option. But you can say, or I guess take that as a knock against JJ Redick, but I don't know. There's a number of positive things that can come from that. And maybe this is just me trying to be as positive as possible, like I like to be. But now that it's like, okay, like we need a center, it's proving to the front office that they need a center. It's JJ Redick trying something, understanding, hey, we're down 3-1. This isn't really working. So let's try something new. And maybe it is, it wasn't, I'm not saying it was the perfect strategy because they lost the game, lost the series. But it's a learning opportunity for him. I think that's the other thing is he was a first year head coach. Like, yes, he made the jump from not being an assistant coach or anything like that to being a head coach. And I think that's a hard jump to make. I think we saw that with Steve Nash when he took over as the head coach of Brooklyn, when Katie and Kyrie were there. And immediately it was criticism of like he's jumping from being just like not working in basketball to all of a sudden being a head coach. Like that's quite a jump. And Steve Nash is a brilliant basketball mind. So it's like, okay, maybe he can do that. Didn't work it out at all. I don't think you could say the same thing for JJ Redick. As far as saying it didn't work out because they won 50 games. They were the 3 seed in a very tough Western Conference, despite dealing with roster changes throughout the season. Like going from having Anthony Davis to having Luka Doncic, like that changes what you have to do. Not like Luka makes things easier, and they figured things out. They were a better defensive team than I expected them to be after trading for Luka. But we also have to look at what Luka was doing before he was traded. He was injured. Got hurt on Christmas Day, had already missed time throughout the season, but had been sidelined almost 2 months before he finally made his debut for the Lakers. All that to be said, I think going into the postseason, I was still optimistic that, hey, it's Luka Doncic and LeBron James, like they're going to be tough to beat in the playoffs. But looking back, it's like, oh, like we should have been able to predict that one. The Lakers were not built to win a championship this season. And I think after they first made the trade, the idea was like I remember seeing it a lot. The common consensus was that this move is not just to try and win a championship this year, it's to set the team up for the future. Now you come back next year and you're probably running a new offensive system that's more catered to Luka Doncic as opposed to one catered to Anthony Davis. That makes sense. You're having Luka in better shape. There's already been reports that he wants to be in better shape. I think the amount that Nico Harrison talked about it or like leaked reports about it and then talked about defense wins championships, all these different things, like a pretty strange way to act, frankly. But it wasn't like prior to that, nobody ever talked about Luka's conditioning. Well, that wasn't the first time it was ever reported on. So if we're able to see Luka be in more of like a championship shape, like JJ Redick talked about after the season, wanting everybody to be in championship shape. We see Luka Doncic come out next season and be that player. How dominant can he be? We've seen Luka just kind of like relax and walk into a 70-point game. Like these insane games. And or after they won the Western Conference Finals, just seeing him just like sipping on a beer. It's like you see other players and they're like would probably avoid anything like that during the season the entire time. Or I guess I can't speak to everybody's diet because I don't keep up with everything. But especially like after winning a Western Conference Finals, headed to the NBA Finals, your mind probably isn't focused on that. But what type of player can we see from Luca if those types of things are taken more seriously? And I think you see that a lot with younger players, like they come into the league and they've never had to discipline their bodies like that because they're 18, 19, 20 years old. But then as players age, they figure out those things, they become more mature, they become veterans, and they take care of themselves better. So could we see that from Luca and see the best season of his career? I think so. I think it's very possible that we see that next season because we also have an aging LeBron James who is still playing at an insanely high level. But if you can have LeBron fresh for the playoffs, that's the goal. That's always going to be the goal. So relying on Luka, relying on Austin Reeves, those things will help. As far as who's going to be on this team next season, LeBron has a player option. Would be shocked if he didn't pick that up and then play at least one more season. No reason for him to decline that if he's going to play another year. And if he's, yeah. Dorian Finney-Smith has a player option. Again, don't really see him declining that. I would assume that he's back. Jackson Hayes, Markieff Morris, and Alex Len are all unrestricted free agents. Doesn't really change much. The Lakers were going to have to upgrade at center this summer anyway. Not saying that Jackson Hayes is definitely gone because they could bring him back, but they're going to need to get a new center. And then they have Jordan Goodwin on a team option, who I think has been a solid fantasy player throughout his different stops. Had some solid games with the Lakers this year. I think he's worth keeping around. I think he's a nice backup guard to have. Can make an impact on both ends of the floor. It doesn't hurt to have younger depth on a team like this. They do have a number of younger players, but it doesn't hurt to have fresh legs. All right. So we've been talking about Luka a little bit. This past season, this is over the course of the whole season. 28.2 points, 8.2 rebounds, 7.7 assists. As I pull up his stats just with the Lakers this season, where he averaged 28.2 points, 8.1 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 1.6 steals, and 3.6 threes in his 28 games for them. I think it was pretty clear that he wasn't 100% when he first got there, still trying to get into basketball shape. As I said, he missed almost 2 months before he, I guess, played for the Lakers for the first time. Still had an insane season overall. His field goal percentage was, I think, the main issue was that it took a hit. 43% with the Lakers after shooting 48.7% the year before, 49.6% the year before that with Dallas. 43% was the second worst mark of his career. Just have to go back to his rookie year, 42.6%. So it's something that I expect will be better. It's not like he needs to work on that. It's that'll improve. Not too concerned. Luka Doncic will shoot a higher percentage next season when he's in shape. I think he should be considered the consensus number 4 player in dynasty leagues. The turnovers aren't great, but everybody that's getting as many assists as he is or has the ball as much as he does, they're going to deal with turnovers. The free throw percentage, I think, is the thing that's always been kind of like strange for Luka because he hits insane step back threes at an unreal rate, but he's a pretty average free throw shooter, 79.1% with the Lakers this year. Um, I think if you're holding out hope that he's eventually going to become an 85% or 85+% free throw shooter, it's just probably not going to happen, but that's okay. But I think that's probably why he's like in the same tier, but at the bottom of the tier, like the top 4 guys in dynasty leagues would take Wemby, SGA, and Jokic over him right now. But I think Luka's right there, number 4. He's going to be the guy in LA after LeBron's gone for at least the next 7 years, I'd say. At least. I mean, we can keep talking about how good I don't really see anything that's going to limit him next season. I think he's going to come out more motivated. I think JJ Redick is going to do a good job of putting him in positions to succeed. We'll see if it ends up happening. But the main thing is, and they tried to do it, they traded for Mark Williams, and then that trade didn't go through for whatever strange reason that was. If they get him a rim running center, somebody that he can run pick and rolls with, he's going to make that center's life easier, get the center a nice contract. He's that type of point guard. I think there's going to be a number that are available, whether it's for trade or via free agency. I remember reading reports that Daniel Gafford wants to be like a starting center, wants to be a starting center. And I think with the way like Dallas adding Cooper Flagg, having Anthony Davis, having Derek Lively, having PJ Washington, I don't think Gafford starts. I don't think that's a controversial take either. So could they trade for Gafford? I don't see why not. I think that'd be a great fit. He's familiar with Luke, obviously. Good defender, good rebounder, can finish plays. Clint Capella will be a free agent. He's not what he once was, but I think he kind of fits the role that the Lakers kind of would need him to. So maybe they're able to figure out some sort of minute split between 2 bigs. And if it's Gafford and Clint Capella, it's not the most dynamic big man pairing, but they're guys that can catch lobs from Luka. I think that's a realistic scenario. Brook Lopez, I believe, is a free agent as well. He'd be like a different play style center for them to work with. Heading back to LA as like a shot blocker, as a floor spacer, that would open a lot of things up on offense for Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves to drive. Obviously, the rebounding would be an issue. Lopez has been a pretty bad rebounder the last couple of years, but it's fine because Giannis is the rebounder there. Do you really want to rely on just Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves to be your main rebounders? Probably doesn't work the same. But I think that like regardless of what they end up doing, it shouldn't be difficult to upgrade at center. How much they're able to upgrade, we'll see, but it shouldn't be difficult to at least upgrade somewhat. I think that opens things up for Luka. I think it opens things up for LeBron, Reeves, the whole team. I'm expecting a big season from Luka next year. So whether it's a redraft league, whether it's a dynasty league, I'd say he goes number 4. No matter your format. That's what I'm taking at number 4. And then, of course, the other star who's been there a little bit longer is LeBron. LeBron's an interesting one to talk about for dynasty leagues because I've had him fairly low on my dynasty rankings the past couple of years, just because would I rather have potentially 2 years of LeBron or 10 to 15 years of someone else? It's really hard to gauge and like truly value players when you're just thinking about that. Would you rather have 15 years of top 150 value or 2 years of potentially top 20 value? And how comparable are those 2 things? Are they comparable at all? It's very, very difficult to gauge that. I'll just leave it at that. So anywhere you rank this guy, it's totally fine, because could next season be his last season? Potentially. Could he play 2 more? Potentially. think much more than that, and it's like if you're trying to value him, I don't think you can be valuing him with the expectation that he's going to play 3 more seasons. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Could he play on a new contract? Potentially. He's playing at such a high level that I think it's hard to say for sure. If things change at the end of next season, then it wouldn't be surprising. But he turned 40 years old this year, and he played 34.9 minutes per game, 70 games, then played 5 more games in the playoffs while playing 40 minutes in the last 4, including 46 minutes in game 4. Like, it's superhuman what he's doing, which makes it so difficult to gauge in a dynasty league. And how do you value it? Because, yeah, he averaged 24.4 points, 7.8 rebounds, 8.2 assists, a steal, 2.1 threes, shot over 50% from the floor. All these just really, really good things that you're still getting a ton of value from in a dynasty league, in a redraft league. But he's also had, over the past few seasons, some years where he's not playing as much during the regular season. That wasn't the case this year. He played 70 games. That was awesome. But he's also 40. So is the expectation that, well, guys, he's 40. Like, if he plays 45 games, then we just need to be okay with it. Or if he plays 30 minutes per game, we just need to be okay with it. But since it's LeBron, the expectation is that, no, he needs to be playing 35 minutes per game. So I think you have to just be cautiously, or just cautious. Just cautious is the word I'm looking for when you're drafting or trading for LeBron, because things can change quickly. They haven't changed yet, but I feel like at this point you're basically playing with house money. It's unreal that he's 40 years old and playing at the level that he is. The fact that people are able to be critical of him at his age is just beyond impressive. And it speaks to just how good and how legendary he is. I think he's going to be potentially a top 25 player in 9-cat leagues again next year. If he drops off a little bit, I'm not too concerned. I still think he's going to be very, very productive. I think I'm not looking to draft him super high in a redraft league. I'm not actively looking to acquire him in a dynasty league unless I'm, in win now mode and I can get him at a discount, because I don't really want to part with a ton of assets for a player that could potentially only play 1 more season. And then if he's going to play 1 more season and he decides early on, hey, this is going to be my last year, well, he's probably going to want to play as much as possible. That's a good way of looking at it, but he also is going to want to win a championship. So could we see him play a lot of games but limit his minutes, limit his usage? Or could we just see him potentially play 82 games and play 35 minutes per game? Like, sure, it's LeBron. If it happens, it does. We can't project that, though. Can't expect him to continue to be superhuman. So just be cautious when dealing for or dealing with LeBron in a dynasty league, because he does hold value. We've also got to talk about Austin Reeves, who is the number 3 option on this Lakers team the way it's currently constructed. But man, was he good this year. Averaged 20.2 points, 4.5 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 1.1 steals, 2.7 threes. He was better after they traded for Anthony Davis. Down the stretch, I want to say just like final month or 2, he was like a top 20 player in fantasy basketball or somewhere around there. The talent here, it's very encouraging just how good Austin Reeves was over the final 2 months of the regular season. Let's pulling up the numbers, because I remember I had it in a column recently. After they traded for Luka, so in 26 games, Austin Reeves played with Luka, averaged 23.9 points, 5.2 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 3.3 threes. So the assists went ever so slightly down, but the scoring and the 3-pointers and the rebounds, they improved. No Anthony Davis, you need Austin Reeves to get in on the glass a little bit more. But seeing his scoring go up, that was encouraging. And then, of course, he struggled in the playoffs. But I think you look at what Minnesota's also done to other teams in the playoffs. Like they beat the Warriors in 5. Steph was out. Nobody else a lot of the other guys struggled. I know they also had certain games like Pods had a really big game, but for the most part, they struggled. Teams are struggling to score on this Minnesota team. OKC is doing a fine job. But in the first game, SGA struggled. Got a lot of his points at the free throw line. This last game, yeah, the Minnesota defense kind of broke down. Didn't really have too many answers to SGA, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren, who combined for most of the points in this game for the Thunder. But I think when we're valuing Reeves in a Dynasty League, we don't need to be quite as concerned about what he does in the postseason. Unless it changes. The only thing that it could change is how the Lakers use him and value him in a trade. If the Lakers are saying we'd rather have a dominant center than have Austin Reeves, then yeah, he could be available for trade and they could use him to bring in a new big. But who could that center option be? Who would trading Austin Reeves be worth? Who would that be worth? Austin Reeves for who? I'm struggling to come up with a good answer because that makes sense for both teams. Because I think a lot of the guys that could make sense that could be available, Austin Reeves is more valuable than. That could be like a DeAndre Ayton, Nikola Vucevic, and Wendell Carter Jr., one of the centers in Orlando. Reeves is more valuable than those guys. And if you want to go players that are more valuable than Reeves, well, I'm struggling to find someone that would be like Reeves plus some picks that makes sense for the Lakers and that other team. I can't really come up with that. I think a couple that could make sense are potentially Reeves for Vucevic plus someone else on that team, or because I don't really see Chicago wanting to part with picks to bring in Austin Reeves. But it could be someone else on that team. Would the Lakers have interest in that, or would they just rather have Austin Reeves and trade for a different center? Hard to say. Toronto could be like a similar thing, getting Jakob Poeltl plus another piece. That could make sense. And then the Raptors draft a center at 9. That could be an interesting path for them. I don't know. The trying to figure out a trade for Austin Reeves for a center is actually not as easy as I was expecting. I think that the better solution for them is to keep Reeves and trade for a cheaper center, someone that's easier to trade for, because I think that makes a lot more sense for this team. But Reeves is their piece if a dynamic center becomes available. And it's hard to even say who that would be. So, because if a Bam Adebayo becomes available, but I don't see that happening. I don't see him becoming available. I don't see them willing to trade with the Lakers for Austin Reeves plus picks to trade away Bam Adebayo. Not really seeing that as a Pat Riley move. So would go ahead and get that one out of your mind, Lakers fans. Maybe if Sacramento's looking to do a little rebuild and they don't want to stick with this core, they could do Reeves and picks for Sabonis, but they'd really have to work some wonders on defense. So all that to be said, why that's important is I expect Reeves to be in a Lakers jersey next year. Expect Reeves to be in a Lakers uniform Hopefully, it'll look like what it did the final 2 months of the season, but I think his season-long numbers are also just very solid. Not not expecting 23, 5 and 5, but I think like a 25 and 5 would be very fine. And that's actually not that much of a drop off, but I'm expecting him to still be very effective. That's most of the dynasty impact with the Lakers. Like, we'll also talk about the guy that they just got in the first round. That's Dalton Connect. But frankly, I think he is still a good basketball player that can make an impact on this team. But he's not the best for fantasy basketball because he can shoot, he can score. Um, Being on the floor allows him to get some other numbers, such as like his 2.8 rebounds, but he averaged 9.1 points, 2.8 rebounds, less 0.8 assists, zero point 0.3 steals, 0.1 blocks, half a turnover, and 1.6 threes. So he's going to score, or he can score, and he can hit threes, and he can be on the floor enough to get rebounds. Not a great option in a category league and a limited option in a points league. I don't see him starting on this team. And his role down the stretch of last season was a lot smaller than it was early on. I honestly see Dalton Connect as the piece that's waived in a trade and that's more likely than Austin Reeves. I see Connect as a piece more so than I see Reeves. I think that's what I was trying to say. Because he still holds value. He was just a first round pick. He's 24 years old. He's not super old. And I think on a rebuilding team, he can have more of an impact that he will on the Lakers with the way they're currently constructed. Right now, he's a depth piece that can shoot. I think on a younger team, he could be a starter, a guy that can score 15 points a game, get 4 or 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and most of his value is going to come from threes. I don't think that plays super well in a category league, but if you're playing like a 30-team league, like, yeah, a guy that can hit 3 threes a game, that's valuable. But I don't think that his game is built for him to do it enough in the box score for him to be super valuable in dynasty leagues. And that's okay. If he's able to shoot at a high level, he can still get paid and have a lengthy career. He does not care about fantasy. That's okay. But a lot of these other guys, they hold some value to the way this team is constructed, but not super valuable in fantasy. Like Rui Hachimura is going to continue to probably produce what he's been doing, which is decent value, nothing spectacular, not a ton of upside. Gabe Vincent will be a backup. Dorian Finney-Smith will be a rotation piece. Who's the guy I'm looking for? Jared Vanderbilt, who is an incredible defender and a good rebounder when he's on the floor, but he's so limited offensively that if he's not able to expand on that, his impact in fantasy is going to continue to be very limited because he's not going to be able to be on the floor a ton. But I also don't really see him becoming a dynamic offensive player. So right now he's a situational defensive piece. That's not enough for him to be valuable in fantasy basketball. And that's really it. I mean, we mentioned Jackson Hayes is a free agent. Jordan Goodwin can hold some residual value, but it kind of would take players in front of him being injured. Bronny James, I don't see a reason to not just continue to stash him. I'm not super optimistic that he's going to be really, really good, but I think he'll at least get the opportunity. So he's worth holding on to in case he can become a rotation player. And maybe he's good enough. I mean, I guess during interviews with players that he could see himself playing like, he mentioned Derek White. And if he's able to grow into a player like that, that would be phenomenal. Just like making a fantasy impact with threes, with steals, and then able to do enough other things to be really valuable in fantasy. If he's Derek White light, that's awesome. So I think he's worth holding on to. I think that's pretty much all you can say after his rookie year is that he's worth stashing. Surprisingly, there was and maybe not so surprisingly, but there's a lot of discourse around him when he played in 27 NBA games at 6.7 minutes per game. Took a lot of time to talk about him. Interesting. Hopefully he continues to develop. I'm rooting for him. But that's all I've got for the Lakers. A lot of what they have is tied up in a few players, not the deepest team. And I think we've seen in these playoffs that the most successful teams have a lot of depth. The Lakers don't have that. They have most of their scoring tied up in three guys and then some other guys that can play roles. But I think they need to improve on their depth, add in more guys that can do more, and specifically at center. We'll see if they're able to accomplish that this summer. You could say, I don't really see the path for it, but did anyone see the path for them acquiring Luka Doncic? Haha. They were able to do that. So we'll see what they're able to get done this summer, but that's going to do it for this episode. That's going to do it for this week of episodes. If you're checking out this episode, made it through, I appreciate it. If you want to check out the other 4 this week, would appreciate that as well. You can like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at NoRuben22. Same thing on Blue Sky. That's going to do it for this episode, and I will see you guys next week.